They boarded their flights like any ordinary day. Luggage packed, loved ones hugged, and seats buckled tight. But in the skies above Africa, ordinary turned to horror. Today, we uncover the deadliest plane crash ever recorded in Africa's shocking events that changed aviation history and shook entire nations to their core. Stay with us, because the last crash on this list, it's not just terrifying, it's still unsolved. This is the deadliest plane crash in Africa. True stories that shocked the world. Number 10. Sudan Airways Antonov 32, 1996. Kinshasa, Algerie, Kinshasa. The morning sun barely touched the ground as vendors laid out their goods in a busy street market, unaware that the sky above them had become a ticking time bomb. An Antonov 32, aging and overloaded, lifts off from Dolo Airport just 500 meters away from the heart of the city. The engines scream against gravity, struggling to rise. Witnesses say it swayed unnaturally, like a wounded bird fighting the wind. Then, it happened. The plane dipped sharply. People looked up, screams filled the air, and in seconds it slammed into the market. A fireball erupted. Meat stalls, fabric booths, entire homes were swallowed by flames. Metal tore through human flesh. Mothers held their children as debris crushed them. Those who weren't hit directly were burned alive in the chaos. Bodies lay scattered in every direction, some never identified, some never found. Over 350 lives gone. And here's the chilling part. Most of the dead weren't on the plane. They were people buying fruit, selling cloth, walking to work. Why did this happen? Was it a mechanical failure? Or did greed override safety checks? Rumors emerged that the aircraft was operating under poor maintenance with bribes keeping it in the air. If true, those lives were traded for a paycheck. Number 9. UTA Flight 772, 1989, over Niger. September 19, 1989, UTA Flight 772 is midway between Brazzaville and Paris. Families sleep, businessmen read, flight attendants serve meals. Nothing seems wrong. At 35,000 feet, calm air surrounds the aircraft, but inside the cargo hold sits a bomb. Suddenly, without warning, a massive explosion rips through the fuselage. Passengers are thrown violently. The tail section detaches. Oxygen masks deploy, but it's too late. The DC-10 breaks apart midair. The sky rains metal. Burning debris litters the Sahara Desert across hundreds of kilometers. 170 people dead. Not one survivor. But this was no accident. An investigation uncovered traces of PET and explosive. Intelligence agents traced it to Libyan operatives. The motive, revenge for a political conflict that had nothing to do with the passengers on board. To this day, pieces of the plane remain in the sand, turned into a desert memorial by grieving families who drove deep into the Sahara to remember their loved ones. It's a place where silence tells the story, and the ghosts are still waiting for answers. Number 8. Nigeria Airways Boeing 707, 1973, Kano, Nigeria. It was supposed to be a sacred return, a flight full of Nigerian pilgrims. Coming back from Mecca, families waited with joy at the airport, but what they got was unthinkable. January 22, 1973, and Nigeria Airways, Boeing 707, prepares to land in Kano. The sky was heavy with harmattan dust. Visibility dropped. Communication faltered. The aircraft approached the runway too fast to low. The pilots struggled to see. Instruments failed to register the crosswinds. In the tower, panic setting as they realized that the 707 wasn't aligned. The jet overshot the runway and slammed into the ground with brutal force. The impact tore off the wings. Fuel ignited. Flames engulfed the fuselage in seconds. Screams echoed from within, but emergency responders could do nothing. The fire was too intense. Doors melted, Oxygen tanks exploded. When it was over, 176 of the 202 passengers were dead. Entire families lost in seconds. Mothers, fathers, children all reduced to ashes. Many blamed poor visibility, but insiders whispered of pressure to land quickly to avoid delays, and the airport itself, outdated and overwhelmed. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a national trauma. Number 7. South African Airways Flight 295, 1987, Indian Ocean. November 28, 1987, South African Airways Flight 295, known as the Helderberg, was on a routine flight from Taiwan to Johannesburg with a stopover in Mauritius. On board, 159 passengers and crew cruising through the night sky. At 34,000 feet, everything seemed normal. Then, without warning, the cockpit sent a chilling message. Smoke in the cabin. Minutes later, communication was lost. What happened next has haunted investigators for decades. The 747 plummeted into the Indian Ocean. No distress calls, no survivors, just a trail of wreckage and sealed answers. When divers reached the wreckage, they discovered something eerie, evidence of a fierce fire that may have started in the cargo hold, but no definitive cause. The black box, damaged, incomplete, rumors began to swirl. Was the airline secretly transporting flammable materials for the South African apartheid government? Was it sabotage or a massive cover-up to protect powerful interests? Documents were classified. The government refused to release certain reports. Families were left with silence and suspicion. To this day, what caused that fire remains one of Africa's greatest aviation mysteries. And deep below the waves, the wreck of the Helderberg still holds secrets no one dares to disturb. Number 6. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961, 1996, hijacked and crashed. It was supposed to be a routine flight from Addis Ababa to Nairobi, but on November 23, 1996, three desperate men changed the course of history. Hijackers stormed the cockpit, claiming they were escaping political persecution. They demanded the plane fly to Australia, a near impossible journey for a plane with limited fuel. The pilots tried reasoning with them, begged them to let the aircraft land and refuel, but the hijackers wouldn't listen. They thought the pilots were lying. The plane kept flying until the engines died, out of fuel, powerless. Gliding over the Indian Ocean, the captain spotted a beach near the Comoros Islands. He attempted an emergency water landing, something almost never survivable. The impact was catastrophic. Wings sheared off. Water flooded the cabin. People drowned trapped in their seats. 125 of the 175 on board died. And yet, a camera on board captured the entire crash, frame by frame, in what would become one of the most watched aviation clips in history. The world saw it, and for a moment, everyone felt the helplessness of that descent. It wasn't just a crash. It was a terrifying reminder of what desperation, misunderstanding, and fear can cost. Number 5. Air Algerie Flight 5017, 2014, Mali. July 24, 2014. McDonnell Douglas MD-83 departs Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, bound for Algiers. On board were 116 people, many from France, Algeria, Lebanon, and Canada. Less than an hour into the flight, radar contact vanished. No distress call, just disappears. For hours, families waited, governments scrambled, and then the wreckage was found in a remote part of northern Mali. Scattered, burned, no survivors. The black box revealed a chilling sequence. The autopilot remained engaged as the aircraft flew straight into a violent sandstorm. The crew, likely disoriented and exhausted, didn't manually adjust the system in time. The plane entered a dive and slammed into the earth at nearly 700 kilometers per hour. It wasn't terrorism. It wasn't a bomb. It was human exhaustion. Technology ignored. and lives lost in the quiet collapse of attention. In one final minute, 116 voices were silenced in the desert. Number 4. Africia Airways Flight 771 2010, Tripoli, Libya, May 12, 2010. Flight 771 was only minutes from landing in Tripoli. The flight had come all the way from Johannesburg. On board were families, tourists, professionals, all expecting to touch down safely and head home. The skies were clear, no weather issues. The runway was ready. But then, a horrifying miscalculation. In the final moments, the Airbus A330 descended too low, too fast. The pilots, disoriented by what investigators later called black hole effect, didn't realize how close they were to the ground. The plane smashed into the desert just short of the runway. A deafening explosion, fire and steel. 103 out of 104 people died on impact. Only one survived. A 9-year-old Dutch boy pulled from the wreckage, unconscious and broken but breathing. His name was Ruben. He had lost his parents and brother in that same crash, and for days, the world followed his recovery like a miracle. Investigators found no mechanical failure, no terrorism, no foul play, just human error. 1 second too late, one adjustment not made, and over 100 lives disappeared in the blink of an eye. Number 3. ADC Airlines Flight 4226, 2002, Kano, Nigeria, May 4, 2002. The skies over Kano were heavy. It was supposed to be a simple domestic flight from Jos to Lagos, with a short stop in Kano. But seconds after takeoff, the BC-1-11 aircraft began to struggle. Witnesses on the ground saw the plane swaying violently, engines sputtering, altitude unstable. Then, disaster.com. The aircraft dipped, clipped a tree, and plunged into a residential neighborhood. Homes exploded, streets caught fire. Mothers, children, entire families wiped out, not from flying, but from living too close to a flight path. 103 people died. 76 were residents on the ground. It wasn't just a crash, it was a massacre in slow motion. Later reports blamed engine failure, but critics said the aircraft was old, poorly maintained, with an overworked crew. It was yet another case of negligence wrapped in silence. And the people of Kano, they buried their loved ones with questions and with rage. Number 2. ADC Airlines Flight 053 2006, Abuja, Nigeria, October 29, 2006. The Boeing 737 lifted off from Nandi, Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, 104 people on board. Just a few minutes into the climb trouble, tower control warned of strong wind shear, invisible, violent air currents that can toss an aircraft like a paper kite. The pilots tried to steady the plane, but within moments it tipped sharply. One engine stalled, then both, and in a horrifying twist of fate the plane nosedived into the earth. A fireball, metal shrapnel, screams, and then silence. Only 7 survived. Among the dead were prominent Nigerians, religious leaders, a family of politicians, and school children. This crash didn't just kill 96 people. It shattered public trust in aviation safety again. And for weeks, headlines screamed what many Nigerians already felt. Flying in Africa had become a game of Russian roulette. Number 1. Soliso Airlines Flight 1145, 2005. Port Harcourt, Nigeria, December 10, 2005. A cloudy afternoon in Nigeria. Students were heading home for Christmas. Mothers waited. Fathers prepared surprise gifts. Flight 1145 of Soliso Airlines had left Abuja for Port Harcourt. On board were 110 people. Among them, 61 bright students from Loyola Jesuit College. Teenagers with dreams, children of promise. But as the plane approached the runway, the weather turned violent. Rain fell hard. The winds grew unpredictable. Visibility dropped. Still, the flight was cleared to land. Then, it happened. The MD-82 aircraft slammed into the tarmac with brutal force, skidded, exploded, and caught fire. The screams were heard from the airport terminal. Black smoke filled the sky. Parents waiting at the arrival gate collapsed in shock. Only 2 people survived. The rest, 108 passengers, perished. Many burned alive inside the twisted remains of the aircraft. But what followed made the pain even worse. Emergency responders arrived late. Fire trucks were dry, no water. Rescuers had no proper training. Airport staff panicked. The fire raged. Some parents had to identify their children using earrings, bracelets, or pieces of uniform. The entire nation went silent. Then angry. This wasn't just a crash. It was a complete system failure, and everyone knew it could have been prevented. Nigeria's aviation industry was exposed. Poor infrastructure, negligence, zero accountability. Loyola Jesuit College lost nearly an entire generation of students. Young lives wiped out in minutes. That day, Nigeria wept. And those scars, for many families, have never healed. It wasn't just a plane crash. It was a heartbreak that still echoes across the country. These crashes are not just lines in history books. They are moments frozen in time, caused by human error, greed, laziness, neglect, and others by secrets we may never fully uncover. Subscribe to Pan-African Storyteller for more untold African stories, documentaries, and investigations.